Welcome to this week's episode of the O-Ship Show. I'm your host, Freddie Laker, and today we have an incredible guest joining us. Nataraj Sindam is a product manager at Microsoft where he leads a team of engineers and designers to build and scale Azure Files, a cloud service providing secure and scalable file storage for enterprises. With a robust background in computer science and mathematics, Nataraj has significantly enhanced the performance, reliability, and usability of various products, including healthcare software, Dynamics 365, and hybrid cloud solutions. But that's not all. Nataraj is also the creator and the host of Startup Project, a podcast and blog dedicated to the ideas and strategies behind tech startups and venture capital, something that I know all of it is very close to my heart. He interviews founders, investors, and experts, sharing invaluable insights on how to build, fund, and grow innovative businesses. Additionally, he invests in early-stage companies in the US and India with a focus on AI, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS domains. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of AI, and we're going to explore its potential and challenges across some common myths. Nataraj, welcome to the O-Ship Show, and here we go. Nataraj, welcome to O-Ship. How are you today?
Hey, Freddie. Thanks for having me. I'm doing good.
I'm really glad you're here. I love that we are both very geeked out on the same subjects when it comes to entrepreneurs and startups and building businesses. But I think you and I have looked at it in really different ways. I've come at this from the perspective of a traditional business leader and a marketer, and even from a sales angle. I don't have anywhere near your technology chops. And you have me sitting in the center of something that I'm super passionate about, and I know that many other people are really fascinated about right now, which is obviously AI. So I'm really excited to have you on the show today and pick your brain across a lot of different areas. So look, we've been getting to know each other and I've been learning more about your background, but I'd love for our audience to understand you better. So could you just share a little bit about your journey? What even sparked your interest in AI and how's that impacted and influenced your career so far?
Yeah, so I'll give a little bit of background where I'm coming from. I grew up in India. I studied computer science, math. I did major in math. Then I was hired by this company called Epic Systems, which is a Madison, Wisconsin-based healthcare tech company. Worked there for a while and then moved to Microsoft, worked in different products inside Microsoft. But AI has always been, I think for our generation or sort of our class of engineering students, I think it was called machine learning primarily. So everyone who's a developer, product manager, for most part of my career, I was a developer. And then I transitioned into being a product manager. So I've done machine learning. Andrew Ng, famously now, who's on Amazon board, I think is like a pioneer in terms of educating people about machine learning. He's the founder of deeplearning.ai, where he, I think, extensively created courses that most people today, if you see they are working in machine learning, it's because of him doing that work. And that's what I did. That's how I got into machine learning, because I knew that even though ChatGPT brought this into mainstream, AI was already there. You go to Netflix, you're being recommended something. That's traditionally what machine learning models did.
Gets rebranded over the years, like every 5 years they come up with for a new name for it. Even in my world on the marketing side, first it was like internet marketing, then it was like interactive marketing. And it was at one point it was emerging media. Every 5 years people would start calling it another way. But I think OpenAI, you could argue, was like machine learning's iPhone moment, when it just started becoming like something that everyone could start talking about in the mainstream.
Yeah, I think OpenAI or mainly ChatGPT, I would say, expose people to what is possible with this new technology. And even though GPT-1 and GPT-2 were out there, there are applications like Copy.ai, Jasper.ai, which are quite successful. I think Jasper.ai, many of you guys in marketing would know. And Copy.ai, everyone started using it. Grammarly, like all these technically are AI or machine learning models that were being used. And machine learning models have been used in Google as well. They were suggesting answers, snippets of answers in Google search. So it was already there. So it was always an interest for me. And I think if you talk to any engineers who's trying to get or improve their career, they're always looking at machine learning and trying to stay ahead of it. But I think as everyone like ChatGPT, but when I did machine learning, it was not really visible from here where it will go next. So that was really not clear to me. Like NLP, which is often referred as natural language processing, which is this umbrella of processing language and manipulating language in a way that it is useful. That is what generative AI has become, right? NLP was the big next subject, but it was not clear to me what else could this achieve. Like NLP, the way I understood it, all the manipulation that Google was doing by that time, I couldn't see the feature that what is possible beyond that. But when we saw like the ChatGPT movement, oh shit, all this is possible, and we ignored as engineers for a couple of years there. And so then I went back, started working on more AI stuff, started looking into more deeply, and now we are here.
That's exciting. When you think about any specific moment in your career where it's probably the most exciting way that you've tried to apply AI in anything that you worked on, was there like a specific moment when you're like, this blows my mind? You found yourself laying up in bed going, man, this was a profound moment in my relationship with technology.
Yeah, I think the ChatGPT moment itself was profound. Like everyone, for me, it was profound. And as I started playing with it, first time in my career, I felt that this is a technology that you could bet your career on. I'm in my 30s. Anyone who is in 20s, like I was talking to a couple of guys who were asking, like, where should you bet your career on? I would straight up 100% say bet your career on AI. I wouldn't have said that with Web3 or crypto or some of these earlier trends. And when I came into technology as an engineer, when I started working full time after graduation, the SaaS era was already fully playing out. The mobile era passed, or like it was in its prime era. It was not like in an innovative iPhone moment has already been passed. So there was no new technology trend that is fully driving. So cloud computing was in the place to be, in a sense of cloud computing is here to stay. Everything is going to move to the cloud. So eventually it's only going to grow in terms of compute, storage, and everything else. So when AI or generative AI came, it is very clear for me that how fundamentally transformative it is. And it is such a fundamental shift. And for your question that how it changes your work, 50% of my work, I think, is writing. It's thinking and writing, essentially. And I think this is the case for a lot of knowledge workers. And it's removed this writer's block. Right now, you can write it, and you know that you can refine it with that hole that you have. And that refining makes you a better writer because you'll iterate over it. It's a very simple thing, but if you really use it, it will give you at least 25-30% improvement in your productivity straight up. And you can use copy.ai or Microsoft Copilot, which I use because we are inside Microsoft and we have access to it. But that itself, and then whenever I do podcasting, I'm heavily using AI now, right? From every step, from researching a guest, I give a prompt with LinkedIn profile of the research, I get ideas on what questions to ask, right? And post-edit, it generates me a transcript. I use the transcript to generate a YouTube description, to generate a Spotify description, to make it more search-friendly, make it more interesting to read. You can do all this stuff, which used to be a lot of painful process as a podcaster, right?
And frankly, I think a lot of this stuff people would just skip over because they wouldn't make the time for it. You'd have really weak YouTube descriptions or whatever. So what I appreciate you segueing to here is you've got this very technical background. And I think for those people, whether they're listening or watching the show right now, they might say, look, I'm not a developer. And I think you've now evolved to a product manager. You've also evolved to a content creator, right? Lots of us are content creators. You don't have to be a heavy tech guy to appreciate those kind of insights you just shared. So if you were looking out there at giving advice to people around maybe how AI might impact their careers or even how they can use it to influence their own career, is there any kind of general good advice or learning? It sounds like you've talked to a lot of people in the AI space. So I'd love to get your perspective on advice you can give other folks.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend about this, I think probably yesterday. And we sort of realized that our career might not be consistent for the next 20, 25 years the previous generation had. So the only thing that we could do in when AI is moving so fast is continuously learn. And that's how this 100 Days of AI project that I've been doing came about, which is saying that even though I have exposure and I've learned machine learning, but I haven't been focusing on what large language models are, how are they working, what is the compute and storage requirements, what is possible. Can we squint far out to the future and see what is possible here? So the goal was to try to understand it more deeply. If I have to convert that into an advice for someone who's not technical, I would say if you can take the hard pill, I would say to take the hard pill and go to deeplearning.ai and start doing some of those courses. Spend 6 months of your life just doing courses on deeplearning.ai. that will set up for you a great career in AI. If you're young or wherever you're in career, depending upon, you can pick and choose what type of courses you can take. But I think deeplearning.ai is the best resource. Everything else on the internet, the newsletters, even what I write, a lot of it is stemming from me doing deeplearning.ai courses. And it is very structured. It is not unstructured. Some of the threads on Twitter or blogs on.
You don't feel like you don't need to be a developer to appreciate this. It's like anyone could step forward in a big way.
Yeah, Andrew NG, again, is so amazing that he's doing a lot of short courses, like 40-minute, 45-minute courses. Mm-hmm. And he has courses ranging different levels of expertise. So from starting to intermediate to highly professional. So just targeting engineers, product managers, just business leaders. So he has courses for every level. And there are also courses which will take you to 4 to 6 months to complete, which are like truly understanding how to learn a machine learning model development and applying it. So depending on your appetite, you can pick a course there.
Yes, mate. You're the first person I've spoken to in this field who's saying, stop mucking around. Don't go subscribe to some newsletters or read some blogs. You're like 6 months, dedicate a part of your life to it. Get serious. And you know what? Hearing you say it, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's this big. Yes, there will be a hype and there will be a course correction like there is with every single technology. But I don't think this is a fad. And it does deliver largely on its promise. And of all the crazy technology that have emerged, it's the only one that I use every single day now and has a profound impact on my output. Yeah. And I'm already immersed, and I think I'm going to follow your advice because I think it's so important to go even further than I've gone. And for anyone who hasn't started doing this yet, you got to get on it. This is not a joke. I'm reading between the lines, like this could quite literally set the tone of your career for the next 10 to 20 years. I don't think that's crazy to say.
It's definitely not crazy. And I think you take the hard pill now, the 6 months now, and you're set and you'll be ahead than others.
Yeah.
I think this is how, because AI will not replace your job first. The person who knows AI will replace it first.
I love that. That's completely well said. You mentioned a second ago, 100 days of AI. So can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So last year, I realized that I have to learn more about AI and get into the weeds of it, explore products and experiment with what can be built and how they can be built and how the space is evolving. So I wanted to observe closely. And the way I figured out is every day I'll wake up and spend 2 to 3 hours, depending on the day and how busy I am, on just doing either deep learning course or exploring a new tool and writing about it. So that's what I've done starting Jan 2024. It's obviously way past 100 days, but I still at least spend an hour doing it. First 3 months, I was really hardcore about spending at least 2 hours. And then I scaled it down. I'm also aligned spending time on AI workloads at my workplace. So I spend at least 2 hours anyways into looking at AI, but on a sense of like, how can we serve AI workloads better from a cloud computing business perspective? So 100 days of AI is essentially that, basically learn, play, design with AI and document it as you do it. I eventually want to create like a website for its own sake where other people can post their 100 days of AI projects. And that is like the work in progress that I'm doing so that the community can start and they post their experience or look at the experiments or feel inspired to do more experiments with AI.
I think the consistent theme I'm hearing is you're basically going in for like total immersion. And by really setting a process and a structure to it, it's making it a lot easier for you to really get in there and not just have it be like, someone sent me something on Slack today and I watched it. That's not immersion. Yeah, you're learning, but it's not enough, I think, to give you a competitive advantage. One thing I do think is worth talking about is there is a lot of buzz around AI, obviously. And as I highlighted a moment ago, I don't think that's unjustified. But I would argue there's also as much buzz, there's also a lot of misconceptions. And based on what you've learned over the last years, what are some of the most common myths about AI that you've encountered, and how are you addressing them and trying to help course correct that when you hear other people talk about them?
Yeah, I think one misconception is this comparison with it's a hype or it's a fad or it's similar to Web3. These tech cycles come up and down and go. I think this happens mainly because there's a lot of reporting by non-technical people that is in mainstream. So when they say something about Web3, it is in the same equivalence when they're talking about AI. There are very few sort of mainstream reporting that happens by technical people. So that's why both trends are considered as equal, but in reality, they are not. So that's a big misconception I see. Another one I would say is, I think it's overrated in short term, while underrated on long term. Like, people come up with really large, bold predictions, like it will eliminate jobs, but then they'll see that, oh, last 2 years, nothing got eliminated, so maybe this is not really going to happen. But in long term, it is going to happen. Now, that long term, maybe 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, 15 years, we don't really know, right? Because there are so many other extra factors that are out there that are influencing how technology is getting developed and deployed. And there will be business factors, there will be human factors, there will be social factors, all influencing how the trajectory of a technology is defined. So I think those are big two misconceptions that we usually see in the space.
Yeah, if they do actually manage to create artificial general intelligence, the level of disruption could be pretty significant, to put it mildly. Do you think AGI is going to happen at some point?
I'll take from machine learning to generative AI transition. I couldn't squint my eye and see the future there because I couldn't really imagine. Because the problem with the way machine learning was done and the way right now the generative AI models are being done, like shift in paradigm in computing. Because like previously, if we take an example of programming a robot, right? When we do robotic projects in colleges, you're top down telling do this, do that, if this, then that sort of like programming paradigm. Now it will unlock programming in a different sense because you're feeding all this data and you're learning from that data, and you're not explicitly telling a robot how to move a hand. You're not writing a function called how to move a hand. It is learning from the data, just like how self-driving cars are learning by looking at the data how to move the car. You're not telling them if traffic light is red, if there is no person on the right, then move forward. That's not the programming that's happening, right? That used to be like how we program products, even like websites, right? Okay, if you click here, then go there. That's not the programming paradigm that we are in. And that programming paradigm changed, and I couldn't really squint my eye and see that. And right now I can't see, again, AGI in a true sense. But with the current technology, you can squint and see a lot of what we expect from AGI to be done. It doesn't have to be AGI, but it will do a lot of those use cases even without being an AGI. Because AGI, we sort of encapsulate this idea of like human-like capability, reasoning like humans or beyond humans, where I don't see an evidence of sort of consciousness. Whatever it actually means is also a philosophical question in humans itself. So I don't see a sort of like a consciousness or a morality aspect. And the whole discussion around those concepts itself is such a muddy concept, even as humans. I don't see that being formed. Again, that's because maybe I'm not at the cutting edge of the research, but I think a lot of what we expect out of it can be achieved with the existing technology when you scale the compute, storage, just the resources on the existing technology.
I think the bit that for those listening who are trying to learn more and more about AI and where this could go is when you think about AI, I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about it, speaking and talking or interacting with the physical world. They think about it like, oh, it's like generative AI. It can make amazing things. It can write better articles, or it could do better design. And it can actually outclass humans in many cases, but it's not outdoing the majority of at least high-end writers and high-end designers, as an example. But where it starts getting really wild to me is if you looked at the latest release of ChatGPT, I believe it was GPT-4o, with that kind of incredibly emotive voice. So now you start thinking about AI starting to interact and replacing knowledge workers, potentially salespeople, potentially support people, and really sounding like a human and being able to emote and communicate in a very human way. And then at the exact same time, one thing that I find a lot of people are really watching the AI space. I don't know nearly as many people watching the robotic space. And the robotic space is wildly impressive right now. A lot of people might be familiar with things like Tesla's Atlas, but I watch a lot of different content and watch a lot of businesses, and there's quite literally dozens, if not potentially well over 100 of these robotics manufacturers that are now getting powered by some of these AI tools. And so then you've got AI converging in the physical space as well. And I just don't think people quite wrap their heads around how many different ways we could be interacting with AI. It doesn't have to be a chatbot. It could literally be something standing next to us in a factory, or it could be answering the phones at Bank of America doing customer service. And I think that's where this starts getting really wild.
Yeah, I think even with GPT-4o, one of the predictions I have, extrapolation of where we are going, is this ever-present assistant on our computers that will also be on our mobiles, that will also be on our glasses. I think we are about to have the AR glasses being unlocked. I think Google's I/O event had a very 1-second sneak peek that they even didn't talk about, but it came out in a demo. I was like predicting this for a while now, and that will be out. But with GPT-4o, the interesting thing is a lot of small drudgery problems that exist in knowledge work will get eliminated because it will be on your computer. It will be able to see what you're doing. So, for example, hey, write a response to this email, and we give it the email. Now, it will give us an email, but we still take it, look at it, and then go and reply it in your Outlook or whichever tool you're using. But the next immediate step is you are just talking to it. You say, okay, this is not correct, rewrite it, make it sound a little bit more easy to read, eliminate these fancy words. You can always give instructions through voice. And then, okay, this email looks good. Send a reply to this in the Outlook. It will go and do that. That unlocks a lot of work. So now, as a knowledge worker, you just sit and talk continuously to your assistant. You have this 2-monitor setup. You're just talking continuously. You're writing without writing because you're speaking to it. You're rewriting without writing because you're just instructing it. And now extrapolate, take the same assistant and put it in your glasses. You're traveling outside. You have a question. It actually gives an answer. It will have a video component. Google Glass is going to make a big comeback. And it will also be on your mobile. So wherever you're going, it will still have that context. Now, whether ChatGPT will turn into that app or Microsoft's Copilot will turn it for like work. So I think there is still a space for a consumer company to own the whole space. I think it probably will be Google because of its presence in our personal life is so vast. So I think that's like right around the corner. We can see with GPT-4o. And then with the robotics point, I think I talked about this change in computer programming paradigm, right? I think that is going to unlock a lot of robotic use cases. I think we're only limited by the amount of data we are collecting. We're actually not collecting enough data for making robots functional in different spaces we want them to be functional. For example, if you want a great robot, a generic robot that cleans your garden or cleans your lawn and cleans your garage, the fact that it doesn't have data on how to clean your garage is actually the limiting factor. So then how do we solve this problem? I think the interesting way we can solve this problem is through metaverse. NVIDIA has this concept of metaverse that they have, which is different from Meta's metaverse. It's a simulation for the real world where you can simulate machines and their operations in that space so that that simulation itself becomes a synthetic data to train new robots in different scenarios.
Fascinating.
And I think that is a very valuable metaverse than actually the metaverse that Mark Zuckerberg was pitching us.
I'm inclined to agree. And one small thought we unfortunately don't have time to explore today that I just can't help myself by thinking, you and I, you're maybe 10 years younger than me, but we're still both of an age where we learned to learn without AI. And I do worry about what the implications might be for the generation that is exposed to AI while we're still trying to figure it out. And I know this is people are using it extensively, younger generations at school, and how's that going to impact learning? I don't know. It's going to be fascinating. But I want to segue for a second. This would not be O-Ship if I didn't ask you for an O-Ship question. And given your very interesting background, I'm sure you'll have an interesting angle at this. But for people who've never tuned into the show, I'd just like to explain what this is. When we first started O-Ship, we were very inspired by this idea that there's lots of successful people in this world, and there's plenty of interviews and shows, and you see them, and you just like, man, what a genius! Everything is so perfect. I'm an idiot. Nothing ever works for me. Look, these guys, look at them. They're so perfect, and look how successful they are. And the reality is, the path from point A to point B is never a straight line. And I want other people to understand that. So do you have a story in your life that maybe explains maybe a moment where things were going great, or at least on track, and maybe they went horribly off the rails? And that could be a technology story, it could be an entrepreneurial story, it could be a personal story. But I always love hearing how people deal with those moments when things go wrong. And maybe it was a great solution at the time. Maybe it was just a story of perseverance. But I'm always interested to hear someone's ship story. So with that, the floor is yours, sir.
I could probably think of two things. One slightly, less intense, and another one probably a little bit more intense. The first one is, I think, when I first moved to the US. So I grew up in South India, where, it's 25 degrees Celsius all the time. So it's a very nice climate. You never really think of seasons per se, except for there is rain or otherwise there is sun. But then I was hired by Epic and I moved, and I came to the US, I think, in November, where there's thick snow in Madison, Wisconsin. And that was like an oh shit moment for me. I didn't know how to deal with the temperature. Like, I was traveling in a public transport. I didn't have a car back then, because you're first in the US. You don't know like how things work in the US, right? Should you have a car or not? All this stuff. So that was a little bit of a oh shit moment. But obviously you adapt. It's not a new experience, right? A lot of people move countries. You adapt. You understand how things work. How you understand how people live here in such climates.
I've been a fish out of water a couple of times now with moving to some other countries. I can admit the struggle is real. When I lived in China, I literally felt like I was living on another planet. I loved it, but it was like moving to another planet. It was wild.
Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, moving to China would be definitely like moving to Mars or something.
And what was the other one you were going to mention?
The other one is like a more of a slow burning introspective thing, which led to me transitioning into being a product manager from a software engineer. I have this philosophy of like career person fit. Just like people say product market fit, but people should have career person fit based on your skills, your abilities, and how you can be in that flow every day, that continuous engagement with your work where you feel satisfied with doing what you're doing, and also feel that you are actually at the top of your field versus you're feeling average. That's sort of like what I was feeling when I was in software engineering, that I've interacted with these crazy good engineers and I felt that I'm not that. And that sort of led to me to explore what is the best career for me, and long term, what should be my approach to my own career. And that sort of changed. And because I was also doing investing, I was doing the podcasting, and then I realized that, okay, I'm a creative in a different sense than a software engineer is. So it is important for me to value my own strengths, and sort of I shifted my career into product management, and then I can say I'm a probably top percentile product manager, then I'm a top percentile software engineer, and that is like a realization that came from self-reflection and working with great engineers. And then you realize that there is this fact, right? I was giving this example to someone that people will say hard work will solve everything. It will not solve everything, because imagine this: if someone gives you a chip like a CPU and asks you to train an LLM on it, however hard you work, it will not happen. You need an NVIDIA chip GPU to train a model in a realistic time. So humans are all different, born with different sort of chips. You can't be Elon by just working hard. Actually,
you also have to post crazy things on X.
Yeah, that too. But to even do that, you have to have a chip in your brain that sort of operates differently. To take that stress at a public level and operate like that. So I think people say hard work will take to your next level. It will, provided you have other things. So how much ever hard work you do, you will not become an Elon without Elon's IQ. Without Elon's, creativity. So you, as a person, it's your responsibility to find your creative strengths and find a field where those can be applied better than others.
It's a very different kind of O-Ship story, but I think it's a good one with an important lesson learned. It's a lot about O-Ships, about a moment of realization and pivoting and how people deal with that. And the fact that I think you use that as your kind of moment. O-Ship, maybe I'm not going to be the world's greatest developer, but I can actually still be the really great, but I just need to find my right path. I don't think enough people stop and breathe and pause and do that. So I think that's great. And I appreciate you being so vulnerable and sharing that on the show. I'd like to just thank everyone for tuning in, whether you're listening on our podcast or watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook or any of the other places we might be streaming. I really appreciate you being here. Do this show because I love it, because I think it's important content so that people like Nataraj can share moments like you just did a moment ago, because I think everyone needs that in their life. And the best thing you can do to support us and make sure that we keep doing this content is like our episodes, share, tell a friend, comment on them. All of that helps. So subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. All of that really helps. And I appreciate you for doing that. And again, I just want to thank you for joining us today. There's really some great insights in here. And I think we're going to be a really inspiring show for people well beyond technology people, because I think you brought a really human element to it. So I thank you for that.
Thanks, Freddie. Really humbled to be on your show and have this conversation. And always great to chat with other creators and podcasters. So it was fun.
And what's the best way, if people want to find you and learn more about you, what's the best way that people can do that?
Go to Startup Project website, which is the startupproject.io. You can find everything I do there, or you can follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter.
Awesome. Go check them out. And I think I'm going to be on your show the next couple of weeks. So I look forward to that as well.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So we'll get to flip the script. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate you. And we'll see you next week on Earthship.